teaching environmental ethics at the U when I was first asked if I would teach sustainability. What? No. Sustainability is a bunch of fluff, right? It doesn't mean anything. I think, like many of you, the word was overused and greenwashed to the point of meaning nothing. But at the encouragement of a colleague, I took the job, and I'm so glad that I did, because it opened me to a whole world, a world of people working together to make things better for everyone. And they founded this world on trust and connection, compassion and hope. So true sustainability is about ethics, because it's about choosing what we want for the future. The question is not what can we do, but the prior question of what should we do. And those questions fundamentally involve value judgments. So there's more than 350 definitions of sustainability, and it's a word and a concept that's extremely hard to define. True sustainability marries ecology and social justice. And in doing so, it asks deep questions about who we are and what matters to us. What are our relationships to nature and to each other? So today we're going to use Eigenmann's 4 foundational concepts, and we're going to ask questions about what counts as sustainability? What is sustainability? Why? Who counts? And how can we use expanded thinking to help make better decisions? So we're going to start here, because without this, we have nothing. I think the environment is what comes to mind to many of you when you think of the word sustainability. Is there less pollution? Is it recyclable? But I want to kind of stretch your idea of the environment to include understandings of ecology and ecological systems. So there was an important paper that came out in 2009, and it was the work of 28 internationally known scientists, and they found that there are 9 planetary boundaries that are required to keep our planet stable. And crossing these thresholds could lead to abrupt and irreversible planetary changes. So we want to be in the green, right, which is the safe zone. Yellow means it's an area of increasing risk, and you'll see that there's 4 areas on that chart that are yellow. So this means that 4 of the 9 planetary boundaries have been crossed. These are climate change, biodiversity loss, which is labeled there as biosphere integrity, land system change, and nitrogen and phosphorus cycles. So climate change is probably the most famous. Surprisingly, some people think that is the easiest of all of them to solve. In any case, we need strong and decisive action and rapid decarbonization in the next 20 years. I want to mention another system today, biodiversity, which you can see on the chart is off the charts there. So in the history of life on Earth, there have been 5 mass extinctions where the majority of life on Earth disappears. So scientists can see this in the geological record. Right now, species are disappearing at 1,000 times the background rate, and some groups of species, like amphibians, are disappearing at 45,000 times the normal rate. So here's an example that really hit home for me. It's from the Audubon Society's Birds and Climate Report, and they studied the ranges of 588 North American bird species over 30 years. And they found that nearly half of these species, that's 318 species, could be imperiled within this century. So bald eagles may have their ranges reduced 75% by 2080. Loons may disappear entirely from Minnesota in the summer as their breeding ranges shift north. So why do we want healthy, functioning ecosystems? Because we want to ensure the health and well-being of all of our global citizens. Right? So people have these basic needs, right? They need food, water, shelter, but they also need things like political voice, gender equality, social equity, education. So using data from the economist Kate Raworth, we're going to kind of take stock of where we're at now. But I'm going to couple that with some of Kate's more hopeful statistics. And I think what you see is what we're facing now are challenges that are not so much technical as they are social, political, and psychological. So 20,000 children die every day. Poor nutrition plays a role in half of these deaths. What would it take to feed all these children? 3% of the global food supply. Remember also that 30 to 50% of our food is wasted post-harvest, so we could feed the hungry with 10% of the food that's not even eaten. 1 in 9 people worldwide live on less than $1.25 a day. So according to Brookings researchers, we could end this most extreme income poverty with just 0.2% of global income. 1.5 billion people globally have no access to reliable electricity, and 3 billion worldwide still rely on wood and biomass for their cooking needs. So the International Energy Agency says that we can meet their basic energy requirements with only a 1% increase in global CO2 production. To me, that's really hopeful news. Okay, if we're going to be honest about the political realities facing us, we need to look at how resources are distributed. So Princeton University researchers found that about 50% of carbon dioxide emissions are produced for just 11% of the population. So these are people that live fossil fuel intensive lifestyles on every continent, but mostly in high income countries. Okay, that's us. So she calls them global carbonistas, as you saw on the slide. Okay, so of all the questions about sustainability, this is the one that's most forgotten. It has to do with who is at the table and how do you define the problem? So one of the core principles in ecology is to maintain the diversity in a system. This is why that planetary boundary of biodiversity is so crucial. So when you simplify a system, right, maybe in the name of efficiency, you are reducing the ability of that system to respond to change and disturbance in creative ways. So the same thing applies in decision making. To truly understand and develop long-term resilient solutions, we need all different types of knowledge, right? We need scientific knowledge, we need experiential knowledge, we need local knowledge, traditional knowledge, indigenous knowledge. And this has been a really long-standing problem. In the environmental movement, we have been segregated by race and class for decades. Okay, so a major challenge that's facing us now in our decision making is the limited time frame in which we're operating. So oftentimes cost-benefit analyses really only look at things, look at the consequences of things as how they affect people, right? Nearby in a near time frame. It's much harder to think about the consequences on people in distant lands or people of distant generations. So when you're considering moral rights, you can ask, who counts, right? Who's in the club? So answers to this can appear as a series of concentric circles. It could be self, family, community, nation, future, generations, ecosystems. So gradually we've come to believe that all human beings have basic rights. But in general, it's easier to think of people nearby than to think of people in future lands or future generations. So a challenge of expanding our thinking is that the consequences of our actions can occur gradually and out of sight, right? Rob Dixon calls this slow violence. This is the violence of delayed destruction that's distributed across time and space. Think of climate change, toxic drift, biomagnification. So this produces a lot of challenges, right? Scientific, legal, political, but the biggest one is representational. How do we make the invisible visible? So here we're going to need the work of artists and storytellers and playwrights and poets to call these ideas to our attention. So here we see an artist made an invisible pollutant like CO2 into a visible black cloud. Okay, so we've seen a number of serious global challenges, right, that are affecting us. And sometimes the way to make deep change is to prototype something in your local community and then scale it up. And I'll give you a quick example from a project in North Minneapolis. So I'm working with a new coalition around energy equity issues. And we know that we need to pay attention to how the new alternative energy revolution happens, or we're going to replicate the systems that we already have. And these systems have excluded many and left many behind. We also know that energy equity is important because people of low income often pay a much higher percentage of their bill of their income on their electric bill, and they often don't have the resources to weatherize their home or to invest in energy efficiency options. So our coalition started by articulating our values. We knew we really cared about inclusiveness, and we cared about closing the employment gap. So Keith Dent is a wonderful representation of how this story played out. So he had just gone through this training program that was designed to give him skills installing renewable energy projects. And he went back to his neighborhood in North Minneapolis. He's getting ready to install some solar panels, some Just Community solar panels on the roof of Shiloh Temple. And these are community owned, right? So they're a co-op. And the wealth and the savings that are generated by those panels are going to go right back into the community. So he was at a solar conference in Bloomington, and he is so funny how he tells the story. He's like, oh, it was so boring. You know, it was all this red tape. He's like, solar needs to be fun, right? Solar's fun. So he went back, and he started a solar camp for kids. So here he's got middle school kids, and they're coming together, meeting with local leaders, working in teams to create solar boats and a solar village. They developed some relationships with electricians and solar installers, and they had a chance to dream, right, about these emerging opportunities that are coming up in renewable energy. So I really think that Keith is the prototype of the new system, right? It has to be multi-generational, and it has to bring laughter and joy, right, as we create wealth, knowledge, and identity in communities. So sustainability is an incredibly powerful idea because it brings together social justice and ecology, but we've got to take it seriously. Don't accept watered-down versions of what's possible. So you are alive at an incredible time. We are at decade zero. We can no longer put off action. We have 20 years to bend that curve of carbon emissions, and what we choose today is going to affect life on the planet for centuries. So we're at a crossroads, and to me, the choice is clear. We have the knowledge and the technology we need to take action now, and the challenge is to open hearts and minds and to act collaboratively, joyfully, and with intent. The reward is a verdant, resilient planet of abundance with people living lives of meaning. And what's at stake is far greater than our personal gains and losses. So I hope you join the many, many thousands of us that are working together for the common good. We're conducting small local experiments, and this connects us across the planet for true sustainability. We bring a revolution of hope, equality, and ecological stability that's founded on compassion and connection, and we need you. Thank you.